Today, we're going to be making my Iron Man Mark III helmet, just from cardboard. Hey guys, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Ryan or RJR Productions, and on this channel, I just like to make things, mainly from cardboard, like this helmet right here. Alright, I get it. You guys have been waiting long enough. Let's just get straight into the build of my Iron Man Mark III helmet.
As usual, all of my helmets start with a prototype, this one being no different to that. In case you're wondering, the prototype pretty much just allows me to get all the shapes down for the helmet. Alrighty, and here we go, building the Iron Man Mark III helmet. It's starting off with this basic support piece that goes through the middle, which just outlines all the rough shapes, and then this support piece which outlines the rough shapes from the side view. So once gluing that together, you get a bare bones skeleton of what the helmet will eventually look like. The next thing to do is to assemble the faceplate. This piece is composed of a bunch of darts. In case you're wondering, a dart is just a little slit in the cardboard that you need to glue together. It will create a smooth, round shape. So those are all over this helmet. The same thing goes with the upper forehead piece. That piece has a lot of darts in it. I think it has around 20 darts. That's definitely not something new you're going to be seeing with this build. There's a lot all over the place. But it does help to get concave shapes going really smoothly across various pieces. I was able to acquire these pieces by taking apart that prototype I showed you earlier, and that's how I get all the pieces that I'll base off my templates. I haven't posted the templates for this helmet yet, but if you want to make this helmet, hopefully I'll have those up by mid-April, because that's when my spring break is, so hopefully I'll get a chance to work on them then. After gluing those 20,000 darts together, I was finally ready to join the top and bottom pieces and make them one. This really got that shape going for the faceplate, and I was starting to get really excited about this project. And here it is, the completed faceplate. It's still missing a couple details around the eyes, but I'll get to that later on. The next thing to move on to is the chin. So I have these two pieces, and when you glue them together, you kind of want to stagger them to make one sit slightly above the other. This will just give it a nice detailed look that will really just give it that edge that will just make it look even more realistic. I have the same thing done for the side of that jaw piece because I just want to raise the details and lower a couple other details just to add some more texture to the sides and really get your eyes wandering across the piece. Right here I'm just composing all the different pieces for the chin, which consists of the bottom of the chin, the sides, the front, and then that very top upper piece of the chin that I showed you first. I went ahead and glued that part onto the frame, and then once I was happy with that, I placed the faceplate on it, and it looks pretty good. Just going ahead and quickly gluing on those side jaw pieces, and then the lower jaw is finished. But I need to connect this on the sides to that upper side support. So to do that, I'm just building off of those other template pieces that I created and connecting it to the very lower side. I'm adding the spot where the jaw would normally fold down at. My helmet's not going to do that just because it's already big enough. One important thing is that if these templates don't fit exactly, it's okay to stretch and bend the cardboard a bit just to get it fitting exactly how you want. And here's what the helmet looks like so far. You can see those layering techniques I was talking about earlier down on the jaw, and the next thing I need to do is work backwards. So I have a couple pieces here that I'm going to glue on and just hopefully fill out that side detail. And well, here's the nightmare piece, the piece that has around 40 darts on it. This was actually really fun to put together, even though it was a big pain, because it just has so many pieces that fit together. It's just a very satisfying process, and overall I was really happy with how this piece turned out. It fits really well over the top and connects perfectly with the sides, so for me, that's a win. With the parts that go right behind the top of the faceplate, you want to make sure that they sit flush with that, and then the middle part is just slightly lower down. And now it's time to work on that little flange detail that goes right around the back rim of the entire helmet. This piece just adds a little bit of extra detail, and I really like how mine came out. But pretty much you just want to make sure that it sits flush underneath and that the seams line up so that you get a nice clean look. Since I didn't have a big enough piece of cardboard, I just split mine up in two. And speaking of cardboard, on this project I tried not to use any crazy thick cardboard or cardboard that would hide the lines as well. I just used normal Amazon box cardboard to show you that you can really use whatever you have to get these projects done. In the end, some of the lines show through, but overall, I think this cardboard works great, and you really don't need a special kind to get this started. Just whatever you have and your creativity, that's all you need to get started on these projects. And that's why I love it so much. This piece right here goes on the very bottom of the back, and it has around 4 darts on each side, but when those glue together, it gives it a really nice curve that kind of cups the back of your head as you wear the helmet. And this is the lowest piece that we'll have on the back. You could build a bit of the neck, but I decided not to do that and just have it as the straight good old Iron Man helmet. Alrighty, only a few more parts to go before we resin. Right now is one of the rare occurrences on this build of when I'm covering up the corrugation, because on some of the exposed edges, I decided to try something different this time and fill those in with spackle instead of covering up the corrugation with exposed cardboard. But if you're wondering how to do this technique, you take a scrap piece of cardboard, peel off the top layer, again there's 3 layers on one piece of cardboard, and just go ahead and glue that on top. That will cover up the ugly corrugation gaps and hopefully give you a really nice clean look on the outside of your helmet. And well, here's what the helmet looks like. The cardboard construction is pretty much complete. Here's a great look at some of those details on this helmet. I also went ahead and made those ear caps right here. And in case you're wondering, the blue part is just a little bit of craft foam. Surprisingly, that's not the only appearance this is going to have in this build. Here's a quick way of how to create that beveled edge. You just cut a straight line, tilt your blade about 45 degrees, and cut another line. And that'll give you the same width piece, which just has a nice triangular shape. And I went ahead and glued that around the entire width of the part. Alrighty, time to resin. On this project, I tried the same thing with my last project, where with the resin, I heat it up before I use it, and that really helps just create a nice strong resin, because if the resin's too cold when you use it, it just won't cure properly, and it'll get cloudy, and that's exactly how you'll know that your resin is not going to cure hard. I pretty much just use even brush strokes over the entire piece, let it dry for around 8 hours, and then go around with another layer. Unfortunately, each sponge brush only has around 1 use, but that's okay, you can just buy a pack of 25 online. Just make sure to recycle them afterwards. Now it's time to get these support pieces out of here. That's looking a lot better. And now we can go ahead and add that detail I was talking about earlier on the inside of the eyes. The reason why I didn't add this earlier is just because it would have been a lot easier to do this without the supports on the inside. If you find a reference image, this part I'm building here is just that little black flange that goes right underneath the eye. And now it's time to get that resined along with the inside of the helmet. Resining the inside is crucial because it'll allow the inside to be very, very sturdy while still allowing the outside to be sanded down and weakened a bit. If you don't resin the inside, then your helmet will not be nearly as strong. Now it's time to cut the faceplate off. This part was really satisfying, but please be careful because you're applying a lot of force and you could easily slip the blade and cut yourself. And here's what that's looking like so far, getting that faceplate action going. Here's what that looks like. Removing the faceplate is just super satisfying, and it's really fun to do.
So, as you can see, the helmet is slightly too big, but I think I can fix that just by putting a little bit of padding in the back, kind of making my head more in the middle. But apart from that, I think this bad boy is ready to sand down.
I went over the entire surface of the helmet just with my mouse sander and a pad of 60 grit sandpaper. You can blow through these pads pretty quick, so make sure you have a couple extra on hand. I was having a bit of fun sanding this down, and I decided to put a little bit of a design in it before I sanded the entire thing down. It looks pretty cool. But unfortunately, I have to sand the rest of it down. So just go over the entire thing, get rid of all those high spots, and really roughen up the surface so that the spackling can stick. Oh boy, filling. The most boring and tedious process besides sanding in the entire build. This, however, is very crucial and you do not ever want to skip this step because this is what creates that smooth finish once it's sanded down. This clip you're watching right now though took me around an hour just to do the faceplate. And to do the lower jaw, again, another hour. I had to do this over multiple days just because I was trying to get a smooth enough finish before I even sanded it. Please take your time in this. You don't want to get any bubbles in your helmet. That'll just cause further problems later on. Well, this isn't the first time this happened. More sanding. You gotta go over everything again, but this time with a higher grit sandpaper. I think right now I'm using around 220 and then it went up to 400 after I was happy with that finish. And here's what that piece looked like after being sanded down. Then I went ahead and put some primer on it, and here's the helmet at a later stage with some more filling and sanding done. Now if you're thinking this is an easy step, trust me, it's not. I had to do around 5 layers of sanding as you can see here, but it's what allows the helmet to be very smooth. Make sure you do this until you're happy with the finish. Alrighty, for primer, I decided to use a couple different things. I tried to use this new red primer that I saw at the hardware store, and it was pretty cool. You can see that earlier on in the video, but here I'm just using black because black really allows the helmet to show all of its imperfections. And here I did a quick little lighting test with some of the electronic eyes that I got. I'll show you those in a bit. Alrighty, time to prime this bad boy with some filler primer. Filler primer is awesome. It pretty much is like a really thick spray paint and it fills in all the gaps and it also sands really well. However, Rust-Oleum filler primer isn't the best, so on my next project, I think I'm going to use some Duplicolor stuff. Here's what that filler primer looks like. As you can see, it's already super smooth. And this is about the moment where I stepped out of my comfort zone. This is a lot of stuff here, but I'll try to go over it in as much detail as I can. First up here, we've got some reed switches. These allow me to actuate the helmet with some magnets, but I ended up not using these. Here we've got the servos. These power the helmet and allow it to spin. Here we've got some loose normal wiring. This is just 20 gauge wires, and with some heat shrink tubing as well. Pretty cool. Here we've got the battery packs. This one I bought came with 2, and these worked amazingly well. You just want to make sure you get some ones that won't burn out your motors. I'll have all this stuff listed in the description as well. Here we've got some LED eyes. I bought these on Etsy, but you can pretty much get them anywhere. And finally, for the cream of the crop, the piece of resistance. This is the Crashworks Alicia board. This thing was a saving grace in this project. I love it. It allowed me to get the range of motion I wanted without coding. So if you've never coded before, this is the perfect thing for you, and I highly recommend using it. But that's pretty much all the electronics, so I gotta do a bit of soldering. Soldering seems very intimidating, but it's actually not that hard. I just bought this magnifying glass with Helping Hands rig, and I just got my solder and all my other stuff. My soldering iron and a wet sponge just to clear off all the nasty junk. Then we've got our flux. You put that on the wires just to allow the solder to spread easier, and then you just apply the solder. It's actually really easy to do, and it's pretty fun. But as you might have seen, there's a lot of smoke, so please, please, please wear a respirator when you're doing this. Once you're done soldering, you can just put some heat shrink tubing over the top. And here's what it looks like all plugged into the board. You can see this is the power cable. You just touch these two together and it'll boot up. And then here are the LED eyes attached as well. Let's go put this thing in the helmet.
Okay, quick little progress update from in-person me. I've actually got the mechanism working. Here we've got the main circuit board with all the components hooked up. We've got the motors that are running in and sitting on top of the helmet. Got the battery pack right here and the LED eyes. Now, I'm not attaching those yet, but it shouldn't be too difficult to do that. Now, all we have to do to activate it is turn on the battery pack, and then we just have to take these two wires and touch them together. You can see the lights turn on when it closes, and when I open it, they turn off. After a little bit more work, I have the side support arms all adjusted and in place, and here's what it looks like right about now. Turn on the battery pack, and here we go. So as you can see, the support arms work really well at securing the faceplate in place, but one thing that I would like to adjust is the range of motion, because I want it to stop around there instead. So I just have to adjust the code to do that, but I'll get that figured out.
Alrighty, and now it's time to edit the code. I had no idea what I was doing here, so if you want to know what to do, just go watch Frankly Built's build series on this. I'll go link it in the description. In short, you want to download a bunch of this stuff online, then you install it on your computer, you import the code into the Arduino software, and then the main things that you want to do, the most important stuff, is down here around line 80. You change the servo open position if you want it to open less, the range of motion, and then up here is the speed. Mine's at 100, and that worked pretty well. But then once you're happy with that, you just go up here and upload it to the board. And here's what that speed comparison looks like after I changed it. You can see the newer one is much, much better, and it just opens and closes much smoother. I went ahead and painted a couple of the areas satin black, just where the black would show through, and then I taped them off. And now it's time to go paint gloss black. As you can see, this is a super shiny finish. There's me in the reflection. But this just allows the metallic paints to sit much better on top of the surface. I went ahead and painted this with some Duplicolor automotive paints. This is the first time I've used the automotive paints, and this is a Sunburst Gold. Just make sure to do a bunch of light coats because that's what it recommends. Now for the reds, I used the Duplicolor Dark Cherry Metallic. This worked really well, but this is really only accurate to the Iron Man 1 look. If you're going for any of the other movies, you might want to use a different paint. Then I went ahead and taped off the gold, but you can see here there's some exposed gold. Now, that is a problem because, as you can see here, I painted the red over the entire thing, and there's a clear color difference from where the black was and from where the red was. So that was a problem. So I had to mask off the rest, paint the front part black again, and then paint over the entire thing with the red once more. And here's the best part of the entire process, removing the tape. Look at that finish. Doing the same thing for the faceplate as well. Alrighty, almost done. So I'm installing the servos into this little harness that I made for them, and then attaching them in place with some electrical tape. If they ever burn out, I can not super easily, but reasonably easily fix them and replace them. And now I'm installing those little screw rivet things. Pretty much all I did is just cut up a wooden dowel and paint it the same colors as the rest of the project, and then I just glued them in the spots with a little bit of black cardboard behind them. This took a really long time, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. And now I'm going ahead and painting the housing I made for the circuit board. Now I did not show any of this, but it's pretty much just a box that encases it and allows it to stick on the inside of the helmet. I also added a couple accents to it, like painting it this cool blue color. This part is just a base board for the battery to stick onto, so pretty much the battery will just velcro to this and then stay in the middle of the back. It works pretty well. And now it's time to customize that plate. So I have this Iron Man Mark III and Jarvis decal that I made. Just hopped in Photoshop real quick, and then I just stick these down with a little bit of clear packing tape. And that looks pretty cool. I like how that looks. This just gets glued right in the middle of the back of the helmet. Next up, I padded the inside of the helmet. This is the second time where foam appears in this build. I got some EVA foam that was 5mm thick, and I just went ahead and patterned out the inside shapes, and then just glued in a bunch of foam on the inside until it fit my head well. And now I'm going to go ahead and glue on those ear pieces. I just scuffed up the sides a little bit with some sandpaper, wiped off the dust, then just applied some hot glue and glued them on. Well guys, it's been several months in the making, but after gluing on these earpieces, that is, well, the finished helmet. Let's take a look.
Alrighty, well, with all of that, that is my completed Iron Man Mark III helmet. This video took me an incredibly long time. I actually started the prototype for this helmet on October 14th of 2021. So it's been a pretty long journey. If you do want to make this project yourself, I do warn you, it is pretty difficult, but if you're that crazy to do it like I was, I'll have the templates down in the description, as well as my other ones fairly soon. I'm hoping to work on them over spring break. I am glad I went out of my comfort zone on this video though, because I got to learn a lot about electronics, and that was just a very fun experience to do, whether it was soldering or figuring out how to work servos. It was all just a very enjoyable experience, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. If you have any suggestions for what you want to see me make next, please leave them in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video and want to see any of my other ones, subscribing would be very much appreciated. And we're approaching 30,000, which is pretty insane. I never thought we'd get that far. Alrighty guys, but apart from that, until I post again, I'll see you next time.